We're here with the cast and director of The Revolutionists, which will be premiering online on April 23rd. Do you want to just just introduce yourselves and tell everybody what your role in the show is?
Hi, I'm Hannah Weinberg-Goerger, and I'm the director of The Revolutionists.
Hi, I'm Kiko Laureano. I played Charlotte Corday in The Revolutionists.
Hello, I'm Dana Lee Thompson, and I played Marianne Angel.
Hi there, my name is Courtney VonVett, and I played Marie Antoinette in The Revolutionists.
Hi, I'm Alyson Enderle, and I played Olympe Gouges in The Revolutionists.
So one of the things that I think is really interesting is the difference between live theater and filming live theater. Because everything was a little more like a film set than anything I think we've ever seen at Lyric Arts before. What did you find to be the major differences in your approaches to what you did, and which did you like better?
Well, for one thing, one has an audience, one does not. And for us, you'll see that there are going to be like 3 different viewpoints. You'll see we had like one in like house right, one at the center of the house, and then one camera at house left, which was really cool. So for me, playing Marie Antoinette, we've got that, the iconic big dress. For me, I had to be very considerate of, okay, am I going to be totally profile to one camera or not? It's not like I can just open up to like a huge audience and go, here I am, ta-da, no way. Very, very different.
What about you, Dana? What were the big differences for you as an actor?
Well, I realized that I don't think that I'm made to do TV stuff. Like, I love theater. I love the urgency of it. I love the realness of it. I love I was often making mistakes, and usually I have a better intuition about how to go through it and get through it. But because I know it was being recorded, I'm like, oh, stop, we got to do that again, because it's like, it's recording. And like with the different camera views, it's like, no, we're not playing to a live audience, but instead we're playing to 3 people in the audience, which are those cameras. So even though when we have a full audience of people, you're being looked at from every angle. So there are going to be some seats that don't see everything, but you know how to space yourself on the stage. But then it's like, okay, well, now there's 3 people in the audience, and they're 1, 2, 3, so those are my spaces to which I am always playing at. Yeah, I mean, it was a bittersweet thing. So I will leave it at that.
Well, and I can imagine, as theater artists, we work and work and work and work to get to our opening night. And you all worked and worked and worked and worked, and then it was done. What was that like for you, Kiko?
It was weird. That's just an easy way to put it. It was weird. It didn't feel like a real ending. I think one of the most cathartic experiences of, let's just say, for example, your closing night doing a show is going through the whole show one more time. We filmed the show out of order. We didn't get that. It didn't feel like we were done because, it didn't feel like we were ending with the end. We didn't go through the experience of living out these characters and their story in the order that you're going to watch it in when you see the show. It was weird. It was a good weird because it was really fun to be there. But it was weird.
Well, that is something that's really different for us as theater artists, because we're used to that through line and the changes that your character goes through from beginning to end. Was it difficult to pop back and forth and have those moments be out of order? What do you think, Alyson?
Yes and no. I mean, yeah, 100%, especially because this show is a comedy, and Lauren Gunderson, the playwright, stresses several times that it's a comedy, but it's also a really heavy show. And so having to switch your mindset very quickly into a completely different scene that happened way before, whatever breakdown you were just doing was it was a really fun challenge, and I don't think we get to do that very often because it is theater. And going back to what Kiko said about it being filmed out of order, it was also strange to not feel that through line, but also it's also strange not to feel that through line with the audience, because every night the show is different. And in that way, it was kind of nice because the show, we knew what the show was from the beginning, and the show was kind of always ours because we had this intimate connection with it. And so without having an audience, it didn't really change, and it didn't really become something else, which is sad, yes, but also I felt made a little more intimately attached with the play. Felt the process.
So did you all build some new relationships during this process?
I think we all built very good relationships with each other on the main premise of this is, I think, the first time we all have done a show in person in the last year. And that's a big bonding thing just as it is. And I felt that our little community was one of great support of each other because we all had the same experience of this is what we've gone through in the last year, and this is where we are all now, and we all experience the exact same thing, which I think is kind of rare in life. So we built our little sisterhood through mutual support and understanding.
So Hannah, you actually submitted this show. We had an opportunity for Lyric Arts alumni to submit shows that they would like to produce in this virtual format, and the show was your submission and the show that we chose. What is it about this show that really touched you so deeply? And it was a show that you really just wanted to do right now.
When I first discovered this play, it just spoke to me in a theatricality way. Like, it was very funny. It was witty. The script was just really good. It was about strong women who, sometimes get written out of our history by men. And it was spoken by a woman. And I just really love empowering women through art. And especially in theater, when a lot of the times, like as a female director, sometimes I get overlooked, or female lighting designers, costumers. Sometimes our jobs are just taken by men. And I really wanted this show to represent all women and all female identifying human beings, and make this about women empowerment, even though it's talking about a lot of other themes. But for me, it was just showing strong women, doing strong theater, and just feeling powerful. And I'm so thankful for this whole experience, because it's just been lovely working with all these amazing women, and just being surrounded by that kind of creativity every night has been just a blessing.
Well, one of the things that was really cool about this team too is that, I think 95% of the team was women, from the lighting designer to the sound designer to the sound mixer to the props and scenic designer. Did that change the feel of the production at all for any of you?
I kind of forgot that we had like mostly women in the room. And I think that probably speaks more to everyone's individual personalities, that I felt like no one had an ego in that room, and no one felt like, their one thing was the most important. It was true. Like no one needed to ask the question of why are we all here? What do we all want to achieve? Because everyone in the room was just so focused and so caring and so detailed with the work and what needed to happen. And every single person in that room had a really high standard of, quality of work, which is really cool. So I forgot that it was mostly women, because I was like, that part was really cool.
Courtney, Dana, Kiko, do any of you have anything to say about that, or anything to say about anything that Hannah said about the process?
I'll add some things. Really just about, I forgot too. I did. I honestly forgot that we were around mostly women, and probably because, you know, things were flowing. No, oh,
it's a different flow.
That was a lot different than I thought it was gonna sound after I thought about it. But what I was really impressed with, is because we were gone so long from the stage, there's that anxiety of coming back to something that you love that has been removed, you know, not by your decision, and then coming back to it and being able to do, you know, material that gives you a lot to work with. You know, it wasn't just you know, jazz hands and stuff, you know. You came back and we had some meat to work with, and that was what was like really empowering about it. And then the fact that coming back with these women on stage and liking all of them, like there's that thing, like we've been secluded from a lot of people for a long time, right? You know, so it's like, you know, okay, it's time to be social again. And then, you know, you get into this cast and there's always the one that you're like, oh, but that didn't happen here. At least it did not for me. What was difficult was staying apart, and we were doing it very well. Like we were being very safe, and it was almost, you know, you forget, like we forgot that we would have our mask or our shields on before going onto the stage, because they've just been part of our faces now.
But that was kind of an obstacle, right? For a while, those, when you were wearing masks and acting, people forget how much we look at the entire face to not only hear what people are saying, but, you know, to really, you know, see what people are communicating.
I thought that was an interesting challenge, though. I, you know, coming back to theater, I was like, okay, here's this thing that I've missed for so long. Here's kind of this weird new obstacle that I kind of have to do. It almost kind of reminded me of like doing Commedia, where you're already wearing like a certain like type of mask that covers your face. I was thinking a lot about how do I bring this new physicality now with this mask that I never really truly actively thought of before, now with wearing masks. Of course, that got easier once we were filming and we didn't have anything, but I don't know, it just added a new fun challenge that I really liked.
Lauren Gunderson has become, you know, one of the most produced playwrights in the country. And she focuses a lot of her work on women in history, also women in science. What about this work was particularly poignant or particularly relevant for you right now?
Something that I thought was particularly relevant was how accurate pretty much every character was. Like, anytime any of us would do research on our character and we'd share something, it was like very spot on. And even if it wasn't like so spot on, like for example, there's a couple of Marie references that aren't, like, they're a little up in the air, but they've been up in the air for a long time. So Lauren Gunderson makes a specific choice to do one thing and sticks with it. And it's, every historical character is so accurate. Like, you know, I'm just thinking of Marie Antoinette because obviously that's on the mind, but you know, Marie Antoinette was exactly the person that she is written in this script, which I think is really cool. I don't know if a lot of playwrights really taken that time to focus on these aspects, but also give them a new light, I guess.
What about you, Kiko?
Honestly, the same thing. Something that I'm a big fan of is when people who do film or TV leave Easter eggs, as they're called, when they leave you little hints or little references that if you know the universe, you will understand. It's a little gift to loyal viewers. Lauren Gunderson littered this script with Easter eggs. I found myself doing my research and going through page by page and pertaining to Charlotte, looking up things that were big keywords or things that I didn't know the reference to. And I clicked on one Wikipedia page, which led me to another, which led me to another to understand the entire world of this show. And it was just so incredibly interesting. I even looked at something that Courtney says in the show is that the little murderer left her book, and it's a reference to a book that I carry, and it says Plutarch, Parallel Lives. Hilarious. And so I looked up that book, and it became for me this, oh my God, this is what Charlotte wanted. She wanted to be remembered like all these great men in history. And if I hadn't known that, that line wouldn't have meant anything to me whatsoever, even when I'm off stage for that line. But knowing that and coming onto the scene with such detail like that is just, it's performance. I want to say life-changing. It's performance-changing, quite honestly. So I think that was just one of the best things about the script, is how specific it was.
And she writes really fully rounded women, too. I'm sorry, Courtney, what were you going to say?
Well, I was just going to say, I was going to piggyback on the Plutarch Parallel Lives. When I looked that up, all I saw for that was that it was just stories about men. So when I say hilarious, it's a book about men. Get out of here. So that's all I was going to say about that.
Well, and so Lauren Gunderson does write really fully rounded female characters in her plays. Can you think of some ways that there was an example of that for you, Alyson? Or something that was really poignant for you?
Yeah. And I mentioned this in kind of what I've written about Olympe. And she's so incredibly flawed in the most realistic way. And going back to your previous question about what is the most poignant part of the script, and for me, it was the fact that Olympe wants to be this activist and change the French Revolution, but she's really coming at it from a really, really like singular and kind of selfish view. And then she has to learn like what activism really is. And it's not like easy and glamorous. It's really hard and it's ugly, but it's necessary. And so like seeing her journey of, trying to do things the way that she wants it and making them work. It's kind of a square peg in a round hole. It just feels very, very human, but you love her because she's so funny. And you can feel that she has a very, very deep capacity for love and to love other people.
Do you have anything to add to that, Dana?
My character was the only one that was not a real person in history, which allowed for a lot more freedom because no one has anything written down about Marianne Angel, but Marianne Angel is a very real idea and created from real life issues and experiences and revolutions and, a combination of many things. And so I feel that that Laura took the opportunity to say through Marianne all the things that maybe the other characters couldn't or wouldn't have said. Yeah, I mean, as playing Marianne, I was able to be with each of the characters at some of their most fragile moments, I mean, I enjoyed playing her. I enjoyed finding the different ways that I could, show her being powerful and also fragile and feminine, like I wanted her, and she's a spy, like we're all badass. Am I allowed to say that? But I got to curse a lot in this play, and I wasn't, that's not what I do. That's not my life. But all of a sudden I'm Miss Potty Mouth after this show.
What about you, Hannah? What were some particularly poignant moments that, you know, maybe even took you by surprise as filming was going on or as rehearsing was happening?
I feel like every time we picked up the script and did a read through, there was a new discovery. And it was just, there was so much revelation. And I think that's just a testament to Lauren Gunderson's writing. These characters are based on like true women or real history, but we see them flawed, we see them struggling, we see them being tough, we see them being funny, we see them just being human, and that makes it a universal story. You just keep finding all these layers and layers and layers, and that is powerful to me.
So we can't have this interview and talk about the show without talking about the costumes in the show, because they were incredible. They are going to be incredible, and I can't wait for people to see them. Does anybody want to speak to that at all?
Boy, I can. Now, listen, I have, you think of Marie Antoinette, you have this iconic look in your mind, and that is exactly what you see of Marie Antoinette. It is literally amazing what Samantha did for all of these costumes, especially Marie Antoinette. Here's a little fun fact. I found out while, you know, pinning the wig one day, there are actually loofahs up in there to keep it as high as it was. Yeah, very, very cool. Made for a very heavy wig, surprisingly. But what I also found was so great about these costumes was that pretty much all of our main costumes had these huge pockets, which who doesn't love a dress with a pocket? Okay. You know, so we could keep literally anything we wanted to. I could fit one part prop in there that sometimes I couldn't quite place if I had it or not, because I had to like double check for sure. Yeah, these costumes are just absolutely amazing.
I mean, I could go on and on about these costumes, and just from our first meeting with Sam, I knew that I really wanted to focus on the 18th century costuming, but I wanted a modern contemporary lens on the detailing of things. So that's why we got the big pockets. But also just little details here and there are a little bit more of a contemporary, something we wouldn't see in the 18th century necessarily, but the silhouette and everything looks period.
And going off the fact that it's a period piece, and usually like especially during this French period, it's a lot of layers, it's a lot of stuff everywhere, and just for Samantha to have been able to achieve the silhouettes that she needed to achieve, while also making the costumes actually very comfortable and very movable, because it's a very active show, because it's so contemporarily written that our movements get to be very contemporary and you know, energized and whatnot. Especially, you know, some more than others are rolling on the stage and on the floor, and her costumes made that possible. Like it would have changed the whole show, you know, if we wouldn't have been able to move the way we wanted to move in those costumes, you know, in those last couple of weeks. It would have become very stiff. And so that just goes to her thoughtfulness and her care to her art.
Well, and also she does put a lot of thought into the research before she even like goes into like drawing up or anything or choosing fabrics. Like, she had a very clear idea, and speaking with her, like every character was going to have a specific color story, specific silhouettes, and a different feel. Like, so each and every one of these characters looks differently, but it's so cohesive because you could tell like it was made by the same hand. She's a genius in my opinion.
Yeah. Samantha, Sam, I don't know which one she likes the most, but really knows how to dress bodies. I mean, and you know, as a plus size woman and getting, you know, being costumed, it seems like all of a sudden it's more difficult because there's more layer, more, you know, more material that needs to be used, and all of a sudden my shapes and curves disappear. And Samantha knows how to form clothes around everybody's bodies in an amazing way. And I realized that this time period, this style is so flattering for me. Like, I mean, it's obvious that it's a period style, but I'm like, I'm ready to rock this tomorrow. Like, watch out. You know, it worked for me. I was with it.
I do want to ask about moments of the show that were particularly relevant. But I think that would be true that when we pull this script out at any time, because it is so universal. But are there moments that, you know, that of relevancy that really struck you?
Oh boy, I've got one for you. There is a scene that Dana and I had together that was a very emotional scene where, well, a big part of the show was talking about equality of men and women, where at this time there was not much. And while we've made strides, there's always work to be done. Dana and I had this scene where I talk about I'm going to just say something intimate. You can see the show and learn more about it. But I talk about the difference between men and women and how men have all these freedoms and women have something a little more harsh. I think you need to see the show to know what I'm talking about, but I see these same patterns, so to speak, in daily life. And they're not to the extremes that they would have been in 1793 France, but there's still themes that I see every day, which is quite disheartening.
Is there anything that any of you want to make sure that you mention as part of this interview that you really feel needs to be said or talked about while I have you all here in this moment in time?
Well, I think that this show is directed towards a female audience and a women identifying audience. I encourage every woman who sees this show to invite 3 men and male identifying humans to see this show. I think that absolutely should be said. I find that so many women's issues are surrounded by audiences of the same gender. And I think that, or better yet, I hope that this show will reach other audiences as well, and people will be able to relate to it. The show does really make you laugh, make you cry, makes you feel a lot of things. It's powerful. So I hope that we are able to reach a lot of people with that.
It's so funny.
It's a comedy.
It's a comedy. I know, it's a comedy. I remember explaining the show to my dad when I got cast, and I said, yeah, it's about 4 women during the French Revolution. He's like, that's really dark. And I said, yeah, it's also a comedy. He said, that those 2 things don't go together. It's a whole genre, Pops. Hope you watch this, Steve Enderle. Yeah, it's funny, and also I am in love with my 3 colleagues, co-stars. Sounded like I said coasters, but they're so good. That's all I'm gonna say.
I mean,
That was literally hilarious.
Does anybody else have anything that they want to share?
I mean, I think this was just a product of love. I think everyone had the same goal ultimately, but everybody was putting their heart and soul into it, and it was just a beautiful thing to witness. And I, like what Kiko was saying, I just want to reach as many people as we can through this project and open up conversations so that we can keep doing the work and keep moving forward in a compassionate way. Let's just be kind, shall we? Yeah. But I love these women. It's been an amazing experience directing them and collaborating with them, and seeing just what they were going to bring to the show has just been magical.
Anything from you, Dana?
Well, I think that being part of this show was like being let loose on the playground after being grounded. It's like, we've been sitting under this, like what feels like punishment, but it's over, punishment got, relaxed, I should say, better than just completely let go, but definitely like, it's time to play again. So I think that everybody should watch this show so they can just see how much we put into it. I mean, I feel like, not that the show wouldn't have been great if we hadn't been grounded for a year, but all of this pent up artistry is just like banging on stage. And these women, the chemistry that we have is definitely worth taking a look into.
Okay, so there are a lot of poignant lines in this show, and a lot of them resonate. Different lines resonate with different people. Are there any lines that are going to stick with you as coming away from the show? What's going to stick with you?
I was trying to think. I was like, "Where's my script?" Because I don't have these lines memorized. Thank you, Kiko. And
now Kiko will do a reading for everybody.
And maybe Dana could help me out because I feel like it's her line. But
are you sure I ever said it right?
No, I'm not. But you are allowed the privilege of writing something, and here you stand, or scared of your own power, and here you tremble. And I think, to me, that's how I was feeling at the start of this, is I'm allowed a lot of privilege because of the way I look, and using my art as a voice in activism and protest, but being scared of that voice sometimes, and just wanting to make sure I'm saying the right thing or doing enough for the things I believe in, and fighting for the things I believe in through art, I think just really resonates with me. And every time Dana said that line, it kind of like shoots me through the heart a little bit, because I feel like she was saying it to me, even though I was not in that gaze, her gaze at all. Dana, what line is that? I'm trying to think of it. The full line.
The whole line. It's a test. You are allowed the privilege of telling stories and naming yourself, and here you stand, trembling, afraid of your own power.
Yeah. That I just got.
I get it right,
Alyson. No, I just got goosebumps again.
That
and
felt
I
right.
think that's always the line that I've, like, every time she said that, it just kind of like hits me in the heart, but in a very powerful, I think that's a very powerful line.
Does anybody else have one?
Yeah. Towards the end of the play, Olymp says, and she knows that a story is more alive than a fact. A story is what lives. Which I always love, because I'm a big reader, and it always feels like everything you read, that person, if it's fiction or fake, fiction or not fake, fiction or not fiction. I was quoting the play accidentally. Those people come to life, and they feel real, and they feel lived in, and they feel like they're your best friends. And I love that one. I also love the one that Hannah said. That would always be the line that made me cry, as Dana said it to me. To me.
Marie's got a lot of zingers in this one, but I think the one that sits greatly with me is that I fear we shall not know the rightness of our revolutions, nor the heroes of our stories for generations to come.
Anything for you, Dana?
So I guess with the part of the line is not complete without the rest of what's happening, but I love the moment when Marianne is confronting Charlotte about why is she here? And, during this time, Marianne is, kind of really putting people in their places. And like Marianne has this really amazing way of like putting one person in their place while lifting another person to get the agenda, started and get it through line. And so how does the part go? She writes fiction like you hold that blade and I know her weapon is sharper than any metal you've got. So you tell me which one you want running the world.
I get goosebumps after every single one. What about you, Kiko?
Oh, I have two. There's one that was actually kind of it's something that I say to Alyson or that Charlotte says to Olympe. And I made a very deliberate choice in the way I portrayed Charlotte. She has a very, very low voice. She speaks very quickly and directly so as not to be misunderstood. It's very direct. It's very literal. And instead of speaking in Charlotte's voice, I chose to speak this line in my voice. And I think I had like one or two of those in the show. And I said to Alyson, which is why I need you to tell my story so they understand it. And I think a lot of our favorite lines are about story and about the thing that kind of sticks in your mind. I think those lines are very important. And I also have one other favorite line because my character has just this quest to find what are the most powerful last words somebody can say. And when she thinks that she has to come up with her own, she raises her eyebrow, she scowls at the audience, and she says, "May God have no pity, you." But I would never say that. I'm very nice. It's a nice moment. It's a nice moment.
Well, with that, I want to thank you all so much for taking the time out of your evening to talk about this show, kind of reliving it after just after finishing the filming. And thank you all so much for doing such a beautiful job. I can't wait to share this show with everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.